Hello, NDCTE members. It's February. It's a little cold outside, but I know that we're all still working on this aspect of independent reading. You came to the conference last summer. You heard Donalyn Miller. There she is. Isn't she lovely? She's lovely. And you know that Kelly Gallagher is coming this summer, July 24th, 25th. He'll be there on the 25th, that Thursday. And so you might be like me. And at this point in the year, I'm always looking at ways to kind of revive independent reading or different things that I can incorporate into independent reading to maybe put into place in April and May. Sometimes I like to experiment with new things at the end of the year just to see if I want to actually implement them in August, September, October for the upcoming school year. So let's take a moment and just kind of reflect on some of the things that we're doing for independent reading within our classroom, some of the activities we've tied with it, and possibly what we can incorporate in April and May to try something new or to even use next year. Now, when we think about independent reading and putting it into our classroom, I have my students independent read on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, the first 10 to 15 minutes of class. That's how I do independent reading in my classroom. I have 50 minutes for each period. So that's when we do that. Now, at the end of every month, I always hope that they've completed at least one text, whatever they've decided to do. It's kind of like our goal. However, they're not penalized if they don't, because some of them tackle longer texts depending on the month. But I want to make sure that I have an aspect where I can look at what they've read and have them communicate with me what they've read without it being too taxing. And a couple years ago, Kelly Gallagher came and presented, and he talked about one-pagers. And if you go to his website and underneath resources, instructional materials, he has his one-pagers available for you to use. And I did use these the first couple years that I had independent reading in my classroom, and I like them. But I tend to sometimes get tired of using the same thing, or I'm always looking at new ways and new approaches that I can incorporate. So a few years ago, I decided to have my students not do the one-pagers and try putting the one-pagers using a different format for it. So I decided to have my students create independent reading websites. And then once a month, they go on there and they try something different to highlight what they've read. And if someone were to walk into my classroom and say, Bridget, Mrs. Ryberg, why do you have your students doing independent reading? What's the aspect with the websites? There are several things that I would say. First off, it goes back to two reading standards, reading standard number 1 and number 10. I think it's reading of literature or reading of information, and reading at grade level and conveying comprehension. And so normally my students and I will put together a rubric. My sophomores this year, we have this one put together. Student can read and shows comprehension of grade level appropriate complexity. It's very vague, but I want it vague on purpose, just because I want my students to be able to try multiple things on their website. And I don't want to say slideshow. I don't want to say that it has to be something from Prezi. I want it to be kind of vague so it gives them lots of options. I use the website not only to convey comprehension of what they read that month, but I also use it to practice two things: how we communicate and the aspect of creativity, because I want them to explore and try different things. And they might make an iMovie and it might not turn out perfect. But notice on this rubric, there's nothing about the fact that it has to be perfect. It's about communicating comprehension and that you understood what you read. So at the end of the day, that's always what I'm looking for. It's always what I'm grading. And it goes back to reading standard 1 and 10. So you can always use that for justification when you're doing this as well. So then in the end, they end up making a website. And this is one student sample that I wanted to show you. And this is from a year or two ago. And they can design their website however they would like. And I do this through Google, right? So these are Google websites, and it's tied to their Google Docs. It's tied into things like Google Classroom. And then they create however they want it to look. And the first month, we go through the design, and oftentimes I'll just have them write a summary, just so that they get used to this format and know what it looks like. And then every month, I introduce 1 to 2 new aspects of technology that they can incorporate on their website. Okay? So for example, we've created this sheet, and I'll share this with you as well. Carla Haven, who's one of our tech individuals in the Grand Forks Public School District, who's amazing, I adore her, has helped Gina Phelan, myself, and Heidi Hughesby come up with these ideas for different ways that our students can communicate their comprehension. And you can click on these and go to these different aspects. but there's Canva, Google Slides, WeVideo, which is free, and you can sign up through it through Google. Screencastify, that's what I'm using right now. Beautiful Audio Editor. This is also an app that you can add up here, and it's for podcasts. So if you want your student to do a podcast, Book Creator, Chatterpix, Story Jumper, sketchnoting, animated infographics. This one is really good for infographics as well. Book Snaps. A new one that I've tried too is Grid, so I can add that onto this as well. But these are just different ways that my students can communicate. I introduce 1 to 2 of these each month, and then they can choose what medium, what aspect they want to use to convey their comprehension. So here, if you take a look, this student did books I'm reading. They created a whole nother part on their website to examine these different books. We'll see if this actually pops up. Books I have read. There we go. Okay, and they've separated like this. And then over here on the side, reading projects. So these are the different reading projects that this individual has done every month. So for the first one, they made a poster board. And they took a picture, we downloaded it. For the second one, they created a Prezi. So if you just go onto the link, the Prezi opens up. And then if you go through and watch the presentation, you can see their comprehension, their understanding of the book that they read, or the text that they selected for that month. One thing that I love about this, if you go through and watch it, it highlights each thing. One thing that I love about this is that they all do something different. Even if they choose to do a Google slideshow for September, they all look different. And they're reading different things because it's independent reading, but they're also allowed an outlet to try different methods of communication, and also to use creativity. They design it, they play around with these tools. And the first couple of years I did this, there's always some hiccups when you try new things, but at the end of the day, they've created something at the end of the year that's like a reading journal. Okay? And they can share it with their English teacher for next year if they want to, and then their English teacher for next year can see what they've done. They can continue to add on to it their sophomore, junior, senior year. And it also gives them something they can showcase to universities, just so that they can show how they use technology to communicate, and also that aspect of creativity. It's something fun that I've been doing over the last couple of years, and I just want to share it as an option. If you want to try it in April, May, just to see what you think, then you can always ask me questions at the summer's conference. I hope your year is going well. I hope you're enjoying your independent reading. I hope that you continue to be inspired by Donald Miller, and that you're thinking about this summer's conference with Kelly Gallagher once again. So bring your questions about independent reading, bring your questions about writing and reading within the classroom, and hopefully you'll get some more answers and continue to grow as a learner. Have a great rest of your year. I'll try to make some more videos. We'll talk to you later.